Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Trucking Tuesday. Today we're going to be talking about the different types of drivers. I'll mostly be focusing on those who carry dry van or reefer van behind them, but just know there are lots of types of specialty drivers out there as well. So welcome to Trucking Tuesday. Hello everyone, I'm Jen, and today I want to talk to you about the different types of drivers that I have personal experience working with, which would be ones that carry dry or reefer vans behind them. There are lots of other kinds of drivers, including step deck, flatbed, fuel truck, grain truck, etc. And if you are one of these specialty drivers, I would love to hear from you. So let's start with local drivers. Local drivers tend to be a very essential part of most trucking companies. They serve two major purposes. One, they service local customers within 150 to 300 mile radius of base. My company, we have several of these customers, and usually they're within a few hours drive of our company, and they're usually delivering back close to our home base in St. Louis, Missouri. And local drivers also will do deliveries of loads that over-the-road drivers have brought in. For example, if a driver gets back to the delivery somewhere in St. Louis and they get back on a Monday, but the load isn't due until Friday, it makes no sense for them to sit there until Friday when we could just have a local driver deliver. Local drivers tend to be put in day cabs because they're not going to be sleeping in their trucks. They'll go home every night. And local drivers tend to be paid hourly because they just don't drive enough miles to justify being paid per mile. These drivers are very essential, like I said, in the trucking world. They handle a lot to take some pressure off of the over-the-road drivers so they can continue to be on the road and do what they need to do. So let's talk about regional drivers next. These drivers, unlike local drivers who go home every night, will go home every 2 or 3 days. Many of them tend to be on dedicated routes, meaning that they serve one customer and make that route several times a week. In my company, we have quite a few drivers that do these kind of routes, and they enjoy them because they do get the flexibility to be home with their families at least 2 or 3 times a week and can choose a weekend time off, either Friday, Saturday, or Saturday, Sunday, or sometimes Sunday, Monday, depending on the account. Regional drivers also don't have to drive a dedicated, they could just drive a certain area, for example, Missouri to Texas and back. But these drivers tend to be someone that wants to have the flexibility to go home but still make a decent living. Most of them are paid per mile. There's a few that do percentage, but in order to make a pretty good wage, most of them stick with a per mile option. These drivers are treated like over-the-road drivers at my company, and if they are owner-operators that are choosing the regional, we let them choose their loads. We let them run however they wish to run if they're not on a dedicated account, and we let them choose their home time. So it's a pretty flexible role to have. Next, we're going to talk about over-the-road. Over-the-road truck drivers or long-haul drivers are drivers that aren't home very often. They are set up in sleeper cabs, and for the most part, they let their dispatchers know when they want to go home. Most of them stay out at least 2 weeks at a time. Sometimes they stay out 2 or 3 months at a time. It just depends on the driver and what they're comfortable with their family and personal life. Over-the-road drivers can go coast to coast, they can go regional, they can go everywhere in between. It's just up to them and their dispatcher where they're comfortable driving. Some like to drive certain areas, like going from the Midwest to the East Coast during the summer and spring, and they tend to like to go west during the winter months. It's ultimately up to them and where the freight needs are at the time. So then let's talk about teams. Teams can be a part of over-the-road drivers. These typically are married couples, or sometimes we have parents and children, adult children obviously, or lifetime friends that drive together, maybe people that were trainer and driver who have hooked up to drive teams. Teams have a really great benefit in the fact that the truck very rarely needs to stop. A lot of these are used for expedited runs, meaning runs that have a hard deadline, maybe high priority freight. Teams are also used for high value freight a lot because the truck doesn't have to stop as much. While they still have the same rules as far as their DOT hours, because you have 2 drivers, if you utilize your hours correctly, you don't have to stop for other than fueling and break and a little bit of downtime. Most drivers that drive teams at the company I work for drive 9 to 10 hours a day, shut down fuel, get the truck ready for the next driver, do their switchover, and then the next driver starts rolling, and they're usually down no more than an hour and a half to 2 hours a day. It's really great in terms of expedited freight, and like I said, the high value because the truck's usually rolling and not stopped for long periods of time at a truck stop or a rest area. So for safety of the freight and of the drivers, the fact that the truck's always moving makes them a great choice for high value loads. Team drivers usually have to decide how they want their pay broken up, and that's an individual decision. A lot of our teams run just like over the road, and they choose when they want to go home. They tend to be out longer if there's someone that their family's with them, and they'll go home just when they need to take care of their personal business, but it's ultimately up to them. Most of them tend to choose to go per mile, though we do have some percentage, and that ultimately depends on the company as well. Teams and regular solo over-the-road drivers, like I said, it's a hard life in terms of the fact that you're gone a long period of time, but these are the drivers that tend to bring in the larger paychecks because they get the longer runs and they get to be out longer and have more back-to-back runs. So as soon as they drop one load of freight, they're off to pick up the next, and they keep going, and they have very little downtime. So it's beneficial in terms of wanting those larger paychecks. A specialty division that my company has is reefer, and this means they're carrying a specialized trailer that can be either set for a frozen load such as ice cream or frozen meat, or it can be set for refrigerated loads such as dairy products, fresh meat, fresh vegetables. Our trailers are single stage for temperature set. There are some reefer trailers and reefer specialized companies that their trailers can be set for multiple temperature zones. So example, you could have frozen in the back and refrigerated in the front. These trailers require a lot of maintenance and know-how. They have to be fueled, they have to have DEF put in them, they have to be maintained just like any other motor. So they do require someone that is willing to learn how to take care of the reefer and put the work in. The other downside to reefer is it's typically live loading and live unloading just because of the nature of the product going into the trailer. However, a lot of drivers make quite a good living on reefer driving just because not too many people are willing to do the specialty drive. And then last but not least that I have experience with is hazmat. The current company that I work for, we don't carry hazmat. A prior carrier that I worked for carried very low grade hazmat. There's all different kinds of hazmat out there. Everything from fuel and explosives to corrosives to flammable materials. It just kind of depends on what you're hauling. So in order to carry hazmat, you have to have a specialty license and you have to take a test to carry it. And there also have to be trained personnel at the carrier who know how to handle any accidents that would happen and also just know the rules of carrying hazmat material. Sometimes that means you can't go through big cities. You have to take alternative routes. You may have to stop more frequently, and you may only be allowed to park in certain locations. So hazmat comes with a lot of responsibility. So these are all the types of drivers that I'm familiar with. Like I said, there's lots more out there. There's fuel trucks, grain trucks, flatbeds, step decks, military transport. And if you were a driver in any of those, I would love to hear from you and love to talk about it. Those are just ones that I don't have experience with. But like I said, there's lots of options when you become a driver, and people switch up. We've had people that have driven local that have gone to over the road, and we've had over the road drivers go back to being regional or local as their families change and they want to do different things. We've also had people switch between drive-in and reefer. So it's ultimately up to the driver what they want to drive and what's best for them where they are in their period of life. So thanks for watching, guys, and we'll do this again very, very soon. Stay safe on the roads and have a great day.